We're going to learn how to work with rational exponents and roots. And the word rational in math usually is referring to a fraction. So when you see that word rational exponents, we're thinking fraction exponents. But before we do that, we need to make sure we have an understanding of what roots are. What is a root? And we're not talking about a plant root. We're talking about the root of a number. If I see this symbol, that is what we call a square root. And a square root is the number you multiply by itself to get that number. For example, the square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 9 is 3. The number I multiply by itself to get that number. So when we're talking about square roots, perfect squares are numbers like 25 and 9. If we're thinking about perfect squares, they're pretty important in the world of algebra. Numbers like 9, 25, 36, which is 6 squared, 49, right? 8 squared is 64, and I could keep going, right? There's a whole bunch of perfect squares. But these perfect squares, when I take their square root, come out with nice, pretty whole numbers. All right? Now, there's another type of root that I want to make sure you understand, and that's a cube root. A cube root, I still use a radical symbol, but when I write the radical symbol, I put a little 3 right there, like that, and that stands for cube root. So now we're talking about, for example, the cube root of 27 is 3. Because 3 is the number that when I cube it, 3 times 3 times 3, I get 27. Okay? And, of course, the graphing calculator will help us on all of this. On the TI-84, if I want to do a square root of a number, like the square root of 81, I press second and then x squared to get the square root symbol. Let's try that. Let's press second and x squared on the graphing calculator, put in 81, and hit enter. And when you do that, you should get 9. All right? Now, if I want to do a cube root on the TI-84, for a cube root, it is the math button, which is on the left-hand side. And then I select number 4. And that will get me to the cube root of something. And we can try the cube root of 125, for example. The cube root of 125. Press math, then 4, put in your 125, you should get an answer of 5. Because when I cube 5, 5 times 5 times 5, I get 125. All right? And not every answer is going to be a whole number. Why don't we do the square root? Let's just try this. How about the square root of 80 instead of the square root of 81? Do that on your calculator. Second, x squared, put in 80, and you're going to get a decimal, right? You're going to get something like 8.94, right? Not every number is a perfect square, and the calculator will still tell us what the square root of it is. So, let's talk now about, we've talked about roots. Let's now talk about rational exponents. If I have 8 to the 2/3 power, the bottom number, the 3, is the root. The top number is the power. And what we do is we start at the root and we work our way around to the power. So in this situation, I have the cube root of 8. The cube root of 8, my power is 2, so whatever the cube root of 8 is, I'm going to square it. So the cube root of 8 is pretty simple, isn't it? Isn't the cube root of 8 2? So 2 squared is 4. And when we do these problems tonight, I really want you to show me that you understand this by writing out this step. From that point on, you can use the graphing calculator to find the answer. But I really want you to show me this step in the red box so that you show me you understand what a rational exponent is. So let's try another one. Let's say that I had 27 to the 4/3 power. 27 to the 4/3 power. Well, the step that I want you to show, remember, this is my root. The step is, this is the cube root of 27, but I'm going to raise the cube root of 27 to the 4th power. So the cube root of 27 is 3. 3 to the 4th power is 81. Now the graphing calculator will do a rational exponent instantly. So on the TI-84, if I wanted to do 27 to the 4/3 power, I need to use the caret symbol. So here's what I would do on the TI-84 for this. I would put in 27 first. Put in 27. Then press the caret button, the upside down B, which is over on the right hand side. And then I need to press the green button, alpha. alpha, I even put that in green so you could see it. Alpha, and then y equals, which is the top left of your calculator, and it brings up this menu. You'll see like this N over D thing. You just press enter. And now on your screen, you're going to have a number. You're going to, what are we working with here? 27. And you're going to have a blank fraction, and you can put in the numbers. So in this case, we wanted to put in 4, and we wanted to put in 3, and then you press enter. And you should get 81. So, it really depends upon how difficult this number is as to whether the graphing calculator helps you that much or not. It just depends. There are a lot of times where the graphing calculator helps. So, you're going to have some problems where you have to do that, but I want to go over a couple other examples here. What if you see this rational exponent, 16 to the 1/2? Well, the bottom number is the root. In this case, it's a square root. If you see a 2, it's a square root. So this is the square root of 16, but it's to the first power, right? See the 1 up here? Anything to the first power is itself. So if you see this top number as a 1, all you have to do is the root. The square root of 16 is 4. That problem's done. So if you had 27 to the 1/3 power, that's just a cube root of 27. And we don't have to do anything else with it. So the cube root of 27 is 3. All right. I could have a fraction that has a radical, like this. The square root of 9/25. Now, you could do all of that on the graphing calculator, do second, and then x squared, and then use the fraction function. Or, it's also important that you know this rule. Write this down. This is the same thing as this. The square root of 9 over the square root of 25. You just think of it as two separate little radicals. So the square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 25 is 5. Okay? In that case, we don't really need the calculator. Now, the last thing that I just need to do a couple quick examples for is they're going to give you something and say write it in exponential form. They're going to give you a radical expression like the square root of 18, and they're going to ask you to write that in exponential form. That means write it with an exponent. Well, we learned today that I can do that with a fraction exponent. So in this case, it's a square root. The root always goes in the bottom. Square root. So I put a 2 there. And I'm not raising this to a power, so it's just a 1. And that's the answer. I've written it in exponential form. Now, if they raise the radical to a power, like if I had the square root of 18 to the 3rd, and say write it in exponential form, now the top number needs to be a 3. So this would be 18 to the 3/2 power. The root is a square root. The power is a 3. And we've already done we've already went the other way, but I just want you to be aware they're also going to ask you to write something in radical form. We've already done this, you just didn't know that that was what you were doing. If they give you 7 to the 3/5, that's in exponential form. To write it in radical form, it's the 5th root of 7, remember we start with the root, to the 3rd power. And we will stop there for today.